Chapter 1. The New House. Aria Miller stood in front of the new house. She did not smile. Something about it made her feel strange. Her little brother Evan was happy. He said, "This is so big. Can I run inside, Mom?" Grace Miller laughed and said, "Not yet, dear. Let your dad open the door first." David Miller, their father, was carrying the keys. He looked tired but calm. "Let's make this a happy place," he said. Aria tried to smile, but she could not. For 1 second, she thought she saw someone in the top window. When she looked again, no one was there. She told herself it was nothing. Inside the house, everyone was busy. Boxes were everywhere. Evan opened one box and said, "My toys are safe." Grace told him to put them in his room. Aria stayed quiet. She looked around. Something in the air felt old, like it had a memory. Her father said, "Aria, can you help your mom?" She nodded and went to the kitchen. Her mother smiled and said, "Everything will be fine. You just need time to get used to it." Aria wanted to believe her, but she felt the same strange feeling again. That night, after dinner, everyone went to sleep early. Aria lay in her bed and looked at the ceiling. The house was quiet. Then she heard it. A small sound. It was like a whisper. "Aria." She sat up fast. "Who's there?" she said softly. There was no answer. She got out of bed and went to Evan's room. He was sleeping peacefully, holding his toy car. Aria looked around and said in a low voice, "Maybe I'm just tired." She went back to her bed and tried to sleep. The next morning, Aria told her brother, "I think someone said my name last night." Evan laughed and said, "Maybe it was me. I talk in my sleep." She smiled a little and said, "Maybe." At breakfast, Grace said, "We will visit the old neighbor today. His name is Mr. Grayson. He knows many stories about this house." Aria asked, "Stories?" Her father laughed and said, "Yes, maybe ghost stories." Aria frowned. "Don't joke, Dad," she said, but he ughed, and Lee smiled and said, "There are no ghosts, Aria, only people's imagination." Later that day they met Mr. Grayson. He was an old man with kind eyes. He looked at Aria and said, "So, you are living at number 79 now?" She nodded. "Be careful, young one," he said slowly. "This house remembers everything." Aria felt cold again. She asked, "What do you mean?" But he just smiled and said, "You'll see." Grace laughed and said, "He loves to scare new families." Mr. Grayson smiled again, but did not say more. That evening, Aria was helping her mother unpack. She found an old photo inside one of the boxes. It showed a group of children standing near the same house many years ago. On the back, someone had written, "We never left." Aria froze. Her mother asked, "What did you find?" Aria quickly said, "Nothing, just a picture." She put it back in the box and stayed quiet. When night came, Aria felt too afraid to sleep. She heard a sound again, soft and slow. "Aria?" she whispered. "Who are you?" Suddenly, her window moved a little, even though it was closed. She ran to her mother's room and said, "Mom, can I sleep here tonight?" Grace looked at her and nodded. "Of course, honey. You can stay." Arya lay next to her mother, but her eyes stayed open. She looked at the door and thought she saw a small shadow move. She closed her eyes tight and told herself it was just her mind. But deep down, she knew it was not her mind. Something in the house was alive, and it already knew her name. Chapter 2. The Mirror Message. The next morning was calm, but Arya still felt something was not right. Her mother called from the kitchen. "Arya, can you wake Evan up for school?" Arya nodded and went to his room. Evan was still sleeping. She said, "Wake up, sleepy boy." He smiled and said, 5 more minutes. She laughed, but her heart was still heavy. As she helped him get ready, she looked at the mirror near his bed. For a second, she saw something move behind her. When she turned, nothing was there. She told herself again, "Maybe I just need rest." After breakfast, their father went to work, and their mother stayed home to arrange things. Arya helped her for some time, then went to the bathroom. She took a shower, came out, and wiped the mirror. But when the steam cleared, she saw a few words written on the glass. "Help me." Arya froze. She touched the mirror, and the letters slowly started to fade. She shouted, "Mom!" Grace came running and asked, "What happened?" Arya pointed to the mirror, but the words had already disappeared. "It said something," Arya whispered. "It said, 'Help me.'" Grace smiled softly. "Maybe you were dreaming, Arya. Mirrors get foggy, they make shapes." But Arya shook her head. No, it was clear. Someone wrote it. Her mother kissed her forehead and said, "There is nothing to worry about." Arya stayed quiet but could not stop thinking. Later, she told Evan about it. "The mirror talked to me," she said. Evan laughed and said, "Maybe the mirror wants a friend." Arya frowned. "I'm serious." He smiled. "Okay, maybe it's a ghost who needs your help." Arya looked at him and said, "Don't joke about that." He nodded but still giggled. That night, Arya could not sleep again. She looked at the mirror in her room. It was clean and plain. She whispered, "If someone is there, please say something." Nothing happened. But then, very slowly, a soft mist started to appear again. Letters formed. "Find the door." Arya's hands started to shake. She blinked and Lagan oaked again, but the words were gone. She ran to Evan's room and said, "Evan, wake up, come and see." He opened his eyes and said, "What is it?" She said, "The mirror." It wrote something again. They went to her room, but everything looked normal. Evan said, "Maybe you were dreaming again." Arya said, "I'm not crazy. It said find the door." The next day at breakfast, Arya looked tired. Her father asked, "Did you sleep well?" She said softly, "Not really." He smiled and said, "You'll get used to the house soon. New places feel strange at first." Arya wanted to tell him about the mirror, but she knew he would laugh. So she stayed silent. After lunch, she went to help her mother in the attic. They opened an old box full of books and small toys. Arya picked one toy, a small wooden horse. It was dusty, but beautiful. She turned it around and saw tiny letters under it. It said, "For Clara." Arya asked her mother, "Do you know who Clara is?" Grace said, "No, maybe she was the old owner's child." Arya looked down and whispered, "Maybe she needs help." At night, Arya sat near the mirror again. She waited for the mist to appear, but this time it stayed clear. She looked at herself and said, "Who is Clara?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small sound came from the attic. A light knock, like someone tapping wood. She froze, listening. The sound came again, slow and soft. Evan's voice came from the hallway. "Arya, did you hear that?" She nodded. "Yes," he said. "Let's tell Mom." Arya whispered. "No, she won't believe us. Let's go see." They slowly climbed up the stairs, holding a small flashlight. The attic door was half open. Arya pushed it gently. The air felt still, but they both could hear the knock again. It came from one corner near the old boxes. Arya went closer and said, "Hello? Is someone there?" Nothing answered. She touched one of the boxes, and suddenly, the wooden horse she had found earlier fell out of her pocket. It rolled on the floor and stopped near the wall. Arya bent down to pick it up and saw a small mark on the floor, shaped like a keyhole. She looked at Evan and whispered, "I think I found the door." Chapter 3. The Hidden Door. Arya could not stop thinking about the keyhole on the attic floor. That small mark looked old, but it felt alive. The next morning she told Evan, "We need to see it again." He looked scared. "What if Mom or Dad finds us there?" She said, "We'll just say we're helping." Evan sighed. "Okay, but only for a few minutes." They went upstairs quietly while their mother was in the kitchen. The attic was full of boxes and dust. Arya went straight to the place where the keyhole was. She knelt down and said, "It's real. It wasn't my dream." Evan sat next to her and said, "But where's the key?" Arya touched the floor near the mark. Something clicked, and a small wooden piece came loose. Under it, she found a tiny metal key. Evan's eyes went wide. "You found it." Arya smiled a little but felt nervous. "It's cold," she whispered. She looked around and noticed that one of the old walls had a strange square mark, like a hidden line. "Evan, help me move this box." Together, they pushed the box aside. Behind it was a thin door line. It looked like part of the wall, but Arya could see a small hole in the center. She took the key and said, "It must be for this." Evan whispered, "Wait, what if something's inside?" Arya said, "We'll never know unless we try." She placed the key in the hole. It fit perfectly. The door made a low sound as it opened. A small, dark space appeared. Arya held her breath. Evan whispered, "Should we go in?" Arya said softly, "Just a little." They both stepped inside. It was quiet, like the room was waiting. On a table, there was an old mirror covered with a cloth. Evan said, "Do not touch it," Arya whispered. "It looks like the same mirror from my dream." She slowly lifted the cloth. The mirror was round, with small golden marks around the edge. Her reflection looked strange, like someone else was standing beside her. Evan said, "Let's go." "Please." But Arya couldn't look away. She touched the edge of the mirror. For 1 second, it felt warm. Then a soft light came from inside it. She heard a voice, soft and sad. "Find us." Arya stepped back. "Evan, did you hear that?" He said, "No, but the mirror, it moved." The glass rippled like water. Arya whispered, "It's alive." The voice came again, clearer this time. "Help us, Arya." Her heart started beating fast. "Who are you?" she said. No one answered, but letters appeared on the glass. 3 are waiting. Then the light faded, and the mirror became normal again. Evan grabbed her hand. "We have to leave." Arya nodded. They closed the hidden door and locked it again. They sat on the attic floor, breathing fast. Evan said, "We can't tell Mom and Dad. They'll never believe us." Arya said, "I know, but someone needs our help." He looked at her and whispered, "Who?" Arya said, "The mirror said 3 are waiting. I think they're children." That night, she dreamed about the mirror again. In her dream, she saw 3 small shadows standing together. They were not scary. They looked sad, like they wanted to go home. When she woke up, she whispered, "I'll find you." Chapter 4. The Secret Room. The next morning, Arya woke up early. She couldn't stop thinking about the mirror and the voice that said, 3 are waiting. Her heart told her that the children in her dream were real. She waited until her parents left for work. Then she looked at Evan and said, "We have to go back." Evan shook his head. "No way. That thing was talking." Arya said softly, "But it asked for help." "What if they're trapped?" Evan sighed. "Fine, but we go only for a few minutes." They went up to the attic again. Arya opened the small hidden door. The air felt still. The mirror was still there on the table. She walked closer. "Hello?" she whispered. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a light shimmered again. 3 faces slowly appeared in the mirror, 2 boys and 1 girl. They looked young and pale. Arya froze. The girl in the middle said, "Please help us. We can't leave." Arya whispered, "Who are you?" The girl said, "My name is Clara. This is Miles and Theo. We lived here long ago." Evan held Arya's arm. "Ask them how." Arya looked into the mirror. "What happened to you?" Clara said, "We were playing here one day. We found the same mirror. It pulled us inside. We've been here since then." Arya said, "How can we help?" Miles said, "You must break the curse, but you must not be afraid." Arya said softly, "What curse?" Clara whispered, "The mirror keeps us here until someone brave enough faces the truth." The mirror flickered, and the faces started to fade. Arya shouted, "Wait!" But they were gone. Evan looked at his sister. What did she mean by truth? Arya said, "I don't know, but we need to find out." They searched the small room carefully. On one side, Arya found an old notebook with faded pages. Inside it was a short message. Time is broken. Only courage can fix it. Arya whispered, "Maybe this is what they meant." Evan said, "I think we should tell Dad." Arya shook her head. "He'll just say it's dust and stories." She closed the notebook and put it in her pocket. That night, Arya couldn't sleep again. The same dream came back. She saw Clara, Miles, and Theo standing near a clock that was ticking backward. Clara said, "The time must move forward again." When Arya woke up, she ran to Evan's bed. "The dream," she said. "They showed me a clock." Evan looked at her sleepily. "A clock? What kind?" She said, "It was ticking backward. Maybe the truth is about time." The next day, while helping her mother clean the living room, Arya found a small silver key inside a drawer. It looked like the same size as the attic key. She hid it quickly before her mother could see it. Later, when she showed it to Evan, he said, "Do you think it's for the clock?" Arya nodded. "Maybe it's the way to fix it." As evening came, she looked at the mirror again. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. She touched it softly and whispered, "I'll find a way to set you free." For a moment, she saw Clara's face again. The girl smiled faintly and said, "Hurry, the mirror doesn't wait for long." Arya stepped back and whispered, "Tomorrow I'll find the clock." Chapter 5. The Children from the Past. Arya spent the whole night thinking about Clara, Miles, and Theo. Their sad faces would not leave her mind. She could still hear Clara's voice saying, "The mirror doesn't wait for long." The next morning she told Evan, "We have to go again today." Evan looked nervous. "You said that yesterday, too." Arya said, "I know, but this time we'll talk to them properly. Maybe they can tell us how to help." Evan sighed. "All right, but if anything strange happens, we run." Arya nodded. When they reached the attic, the hidden door opened easily. The mirror was quiet. Arya took a deep breath and said, "Clara, are you there?" For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the glass turned cloudy and the three faces appeared again. Clara said softly, "You came back." Arya nodded. "We want to help you. Tell us what we must do." Miles said, "The clock controls the mirror, but the key is lost." Arya took the small silver key from her pocket and held it up. "Is this it?" Theo smiled a little. "Yes, that is the time key." Arya asked, "Where is the clock?" Clara said, "In the room of the first owner. He built the mirror to save his daughter, but something went wrong." Evan said, "Is the room still in this house?" Clara nodded. "It is behind the wall near the stairs." Arya whispered, "How do we open it?" Clara said, "Use the key when you hear the bell ring." Arya frowned. "What bell?" But before anyone could answer, the light inside the mirror faded again. The three children were gone. Evan looked at Arya. "They always disappear so fast." Arya said, "We'll wait for the bell." They went downstairs and stayed near the stairs all day. Nothing happened. Their parents came home, and the day went on as usual. That night, as everyone was about to sleep, Arya suddenly heard a faint ringing sound. It was soft but clear, like a clock chime. She ran to Evan's room. "Evan, wake up! The bell!" He sat up quickly. "Now?" She nodded. "Come fast." They went to the stairs, quietly. The sound was coming from the wall beside it. Arya touched the wall and said, "This must be the place." She took the silver key and pressed it against the wall. A small round hole appeared, glowing lightly. The key fit perfectly. When she turned it, the wall moved. A narrow passage opened slowly. Arya whispered, "We found it." Evan said, "It's dark." Arya said, "Hold my hand." They stepped inside. The passage led to a small hidden room. In the middle stood a big old clock. Its hands were moving backward, just like in Arya's dream. She said, "This is it." Evan said softly, "What do we do now?" Arya looked around and saw an empty space where something was missing. "Maybe the key fits here," she said. She put the key in the slot under the clock. The hands stopped for a second, then started to move forward. A soft golden light filled the room. From behind them, they heard Clara's voice. "You did it." Arya turned around and saw the 3 children standing there, not in the mirror this time, but right in front of them. Evan gasped, "You're real." Miles smiled, "Only for a moment." Theo said, "The clock freed us." Clara looked at Arya and said, "Thank you. You gave us time again." Arya's eyes filled with tears. "Will you be okay now?" Clara nodded. "Yes. The curse is over. But you must promise one thing." Arya said, "What is it?" Clara said, "Never let anyone touch the mirror again." Before Arya could answer, the light grew brighter. The children's faces faded slowly. Their voices echoed one last time. "Thank you, Arya." And then they were gone. Chapter 6. The Puzzle of Time. After that night, Arya and Evan could not forget what they saw. The image of Clara, Miles, and Theo standing in front of them felt real, not like a dream. When they woke up the next morning, they both ran to the hidden room again. The clock was still there, but now it had stopped moving. Arya touched it and said, "It's quiet now." Evan whispered, "Maybe they're gone forever." Arya looked sad. "I hope they're free, but something tells me the story isn't finished." Later that day, their father asked them to help move an old chest from the corner. While moving it, a small notebook fell out. On the first page, someone had written, "The truth hides in pieces." Arya opened it fully. Inside, there were drawings of the same clock and mirror. On one page, she found a sentence that said, "When the clock stops, the heart of time must be found." She looked at Evan and said, "This isn't over. We still have something to do." Evan frowned. "What heart of time? That sounds scary." Arya smiled slightly. "Maybe it means a clue." That night, Arya dreamed again. She was standing near the clock, and the 3 children appeared once more. Clara said softly, "The time is not fixed yet. One piece is missing." Arya said, "What piece?" Miles pointed toward the mirror and said, "The truth lies behind what you see." Arya tried to ask more, but the dream ended suddenly. She woke up and whispered, "The mirror." The next morning she told Evan, "We have to look behind the mirror." He groaned, "Not again." But she convinced him. They opened the hidden door and entered the small room once more. The mirror looked silent and dull. Arya took a deep breath and said, "Clara, please show me." Nothing happened. She stepped closer and touched the edge. Her reflection started to change. For a moment, she saw the 3 children again. They smiled sadly, then pointed behind the mirror. Arya said, "There's something there." She and Evan pushed the mirror carefully aside. Behind it, I found a small round stone with strange marks. It glowed softly when Arya touched it. Evan asked, "Is this the missing piece?" Arya nodded. "I think so. It's warm." Suddenly, the clock in the other room started to tick again. They ran to it and saw the hands moving wildly. The light around it grew bright. A deep voice echoed in the room. "Time must complete the circle." Arya said, "What does that mean?" Evan shouted, "Maybe we need to put the stone in." She looked around and found a small round hole in the clock's center. She placed the glowing stone inside. The clock stopped again for a few seconds, then slowly started ticking forward. The golden light turned softer, and the whole room felt calm. The mirror's surface became clear again, showing only their reflections. Arya heard Clara's voice faintly. "The circle is closed now. You have fixed what was broken." Evan smiled. "Does that mean it's all over?" Arya nodded slowly. "Yes. I think time is safe again." They left the hidden room quietly. When they closed the door, it sealed itself, leaving only a blank wall behind. Arya whispered, "It doesn't want to be found anymore." Evan said, "Good. No one should touch it." That evening, their father said at dinner, "The house feels peaceful now. It's strange, but I feel lighter." Grace smiled. "Maybe we're finally settling in." Arya looked at Evan and smiled too, but they both knew the truth. Something deep inside the house had changed. Before sleeping, Arya went to her mirror one last time. She looked at her reflection and said softly, "Clara, Miles, Theo, I hope you're happy now." For a second, she thought she saw their faces smiling faintly behind her. Then the image disappeared, leaving only her reflection and a calm heart. Chapter 7. The Last Choice. The next morning, Arya woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. She thought the story was finished, but the mirror had not disappeared. It still stood quietly in her room, shining in the morning light. When she looked at it, she saw her own reflection, and for one short second, Clara's face appeared behind her again. Arya gasped. "Clara? Is something wrong?" The voice came softly. "The clock is calm, but time is not done. One choice remains." Arya whispered, "What choice?" Clara said, "Someone must stay to protect the mirror. If not, it will open again." Then her face faded away. Arya sat on her bed, thinking deeply. She did not understand what it meant. When she told Evan, he frowned. "Stay?" Stay where? Arya said, inside the mirror. I think that's what she meant. Evan shook his head quickly. No way. You can't do that. Arya said quietly, maybe it's the only way to keep them safe. He looked at her and said, you always try to fix everything. Let's find another way. Arya smiled sadly. Sometimes the only way out is to give something back. That evening, the mirror began to glow again. The same soft light filled the room. Arya felt pulled toward it. Evan shouted, Don't go near it! Arya said, I have to. She reached her hand forward. The surface felt warm, like gentle water. Clara's voice returned. You can leave the mirror open, or close it forever. But if you close it, you will never see us again. Arya whispered, If I leave it open, someone else might get trapped. Clara said, Yes, the choice is yours. Arya took a long breath. Then I'll close it. Evan grabbed her hand. No, there must be another way. Arya smiled softly. You're brave, Evan, but this is mine to finish. He said, I won't let you go alone. She said, You won't have to. I'll always be here, just not in the same way. Evan's eyes filled with tears. You promise you'll come back? Arya whispered, I promise you'll feel me when you need courage. She touched at the mirror again. The light surrounded her completely. Inside the light, Arya saw Clara, Miles, and Theo waiting. They looked peaceful now. Clara said, You've done more than we hoped. Thank you, Arya asked. Will this really stop it? Miles said. Yes. When you close the mirror, time will rest. Arya looked back one last time and saw Evan crying near the door. She whispered, Goodbye, little brother. The light grew stronger until everything became white. Then the mirror went dark. Evan shouted her name again and again, but there was no answer. The next morning, the mirror stood plain and empty. No light, no voices, just a quiet reflection. Grace found Evan sitting near it and asked, What are you doing here? He looked up and said, I'm waiting for Arya. Grace smiled gently. She's probably outside. But Evan whispered to himself, No, she's here. Days passed, and the house stayed calm. One afternoon, Evan looked into the mirror and saw something small written on the glass. The words glowed softly. Thank you, Evan. The house is safe now. He smiled through his tears and whispered, I miss you too. That night, as the moonlight filled the room, the mirror shimmered once. A soft laugh echoed in the air. Arya's laugh. Evan looked up at the sky and said, Good night, Arya. Chapter 8. The morning light. The morning after Arya disappeared, the house felt silent. Evan walked slowly through every room, calling her name again and again. He looked under the bed, behind doors, even inside the attic, but there was no sign of her. He sat on the floor and whispered, You promised you'll be here. His mother came upstairs and said softly, Evan, come down for breakfast." He wiped his eyes and said, "I'm not hungry." Grace sat beside him. "I know you miss your sister. She's probably just with her friends." But Evan shook his head. "She's here, Mom, just not like before." Grace looked confused but didn't argue. She kissed his head and went downstairs. Evan sat quietly in front of the mirror. It looked like a normal mirror now, but he knew it wasn't. He whispered, "Aria, can you hear me?" For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a faint light appeared around the glass, like morning sunlight breaking through clouds. He smiled a little and said, "You're still here." A soft sound came, almost like a whisper. "I told you I'll never leave." Evan felt warmth in his chest. "Are you happy?" he asked. The voice said, "Yes. The house is safe now. Time is quiet." Evan nodded. "I miss you." The voice answered, "I miss you too, little brother. But you must live." Days turned into weeks. The Miller family slowly got used to life again. Their father worked happily, and their mother smiled more. But Evan often went to the attic alone. He brought his books there and talked softly to the mirror. He told Aria about his school, about how he got good marks, and how he helped their mother. Sometimes the mirror would glow faintly, as if listening. One day he asked, "Do you still see Clara, Miles, and Theo?" The voice replied gently, "Yes, they're free now. We all are." Evan smiled. "Then you did it, Aria. You really did." Months later, the Millers decided to invite Mr. Grayson for dinner. He had not come since the night of the storm. When he arrived, he looked at Eva, Anne, and said, "The house feels different now. Peaceful." Evan smiled and said, "It's because the mirror is sleeping." Mr. Grayson looked surprised. "Ah, so it has chosen to rest at last." Grace asked, "What do you mean?" He smiled softly and said, "Every old house keeps memories. When someone brave enough faces them, the house remembers peace." Evan looked down and said quietly, "My sister was brave." Mr. Grayson nodded. "Then she's still here. Houses never forget the ones who save them." That night, after everyone slept, Evan went to the attic again. He sat in front of the mirror and said, "I think you'd be proud of me, Aria. I'm not scared anymore." The mirror stayed still, but a faint smile appeared in his reflection. Not his own, but Aria's. He whispered, "Good night, Aria," and felt a soft wind move across his face, warm and gentle like her hug. Years passed. Evan grew older, but he never forgot the house at number 79. He told his own children stories about it, not as a horror story, but as a story of courage and love. "My sister was not afraid," he would say. "She gave up her world to keep ours safe." And every time he said those words, he felt she was listening. One morning, when Evan was an adult, he visited the old house again. It was empty now. The door creaked as he stepped in. The dust had covered everything, but the mirror was still standing in the same place. He smiled softly and said, "It's been many years, Aria. The mirror glowed faintly, like it was smiling back. He touched the glass and whispered, "Thank you for everything." The light grew for a second, bright and warm, and then faded again. As Evan walked out, the morning sun filled the house. The air felt calm, full of peace. He turned once more and looked back. For just a moment, he thought he saw Arya standing at the top of the stairs, smiling the same gentle smile she always had. He whispered, "Goodbye, sister." Then he stepped outside into the bright light of the new day. The house at number 79 stood silent but alive, as if it was breathing again. And though no one ever saw Arya Miller again, her presence stayed forever, in the warmth of every morning light, in the calm of every quiet night, and in the heart of her brother who never forgot her.